Welcome to the latest edition of the Snews here at LonghornStation.com with Ahmad Brooks. I'm John Medani. You hear us on the Wake Up Call weekday mornings from 6 to 9 on AM 1300 The Zone. Today on this Top 5 Tuesday, we reviewed our picks for the 5 teams that we feel made the most improvement during the NFL draft. At number 5, I had the Minnesota Vikings. We're going to give you an abbreviated version here. If you want to read the whole thing, please visit our respective blogs at LonghornStation.com. But I had the Vikings at number 5, and a lot of people don't have the Vikings. It's interesting. They viewed the drafting of Toby Gerhart from Stanford as the guy who's going to take the place of Chester Taylor. See, and I don't. To me, Gerhart is there to move the chains whenever they want to sit Adrian Peterson. Now, they made some other moves. They picked up Griffin, the tight end from, the defensive end from UFC, said he got a bad motor. Well, hey, that's the best D-line in football. He'll find motivation quickly. Brett Favre's not going to tolerate any laziness. This team played well enough to make the Super Bowl last year. Favre threw that interception in New Orleans, otherwise they'd have been there. They didn't need much. I actually like Gerhart as a substitute for Adrian Peterson late in games. I've got the Vikings at number 5.
I think it's a horrible move. I mean, you got.
That's my list.
Gerhart is. We'll see what happens.
Yeah.
Number 5 for me, the Tennessee Titans. Yeah, I'm talking about one of the hottest teams in the NFL in the second half of the season. They won 8 of their last 10, and we all remember the fantastic ride they were on with players who weren't supposed to be able to get it done, right? Well, they upgraded their talent tremendously. They went out and tried to find a replacement for Kyle Vanden Bosch and Derek Morgan, the young man out of Georgia Tech. He's 6'3", 266 pounds. He's a man. And he's got nice ball get-off and an explosive first step. He's going to make a difference on their team. They followed that up by picking up a wide receiver. When was the last time any of these, whether it be Kerry Collins or Vince Young, had a decent wide receiver to throw the football to? I think Damian Williams, who played at USC, is going to occupy that spot. He could be a number 2 this year, maybe a number 3, and eventually will be the guy if he continues to work at the pace that I hear he does. They kept going through it. I mean, that was just one of the few picks. They addressed their a DB issue. They have addressed their offensive line. I think the Tennessee Titans slowly but surely kind of got them way back into the mix of making the playoffs next year and perhaps making a run.
You going to do a book report on each one of these?
I might.
It's supposed to be the shortened version.
I might.
Number 4 for me is the Cincinnati Bengals. It's very simple. The defense, they like where they were, and they're in a division that plays low-scoring, hard-hitting games for the most part. They needed to upgrade their offense. It's Carson Palmer, we all know that, but basically Cedric Benson was their offense last year. They were way down the list in the bottom 1/4 of the league in terms of their passing offense. So what did they do? They went and grabbed a couple of tight ends. They grabbed a couple of receivers. We know about Jordan Shipley. How about Des Briscoe in the 6th round from Kansas? He taught everything caught everything Todd Reesing threw his way. I think they address those needs on the offense. I think they're going to score at least 20 points a game, and if they do, that makes life difficult for Pittsburgh and Baltimore. I like what the Bengals did. I've got them at number 4.
I actually have them at number 3, but I have the 49ers at number 4. Mike Singletary and this franchise did an excellent job, in my opinion, of addressing their needs, and they did it early, and they did it with some players that I think a lot of people felt were can't-miss guys. Speaking of first, Anthony Davis, the offensive tackle out of Rutgers, they followed that up with the pick that a lot of people believe can play both offensive guard and tackle. I think he'll settle down at the offensive guard spot in Mike Uwapati. And then they finished it up with Taylor Mays. Great addition, I think. He's going to be physical. He'll be a guy that kind of sets the tone back there behind Patrick Willis as a guy who, once you get past that second line of defense, is going to bring it to you. San Francisco 49ers, number 4 for me.
And I have the 49ers at number 3 on my list, and I like everything he said, but I like Anthony Dixon too. Steal of the draft. Steal of the draft. Running back, Mississippi State. Big guy who changes direction just enough. And he made a living getting hit in the SEC, and they got him in the 6th round. I think he's the best friend. Frank Gore is going to love to see this big guy come in here and try to get him some rest late in ball games. I like what the 49ers did, too. They should have been higher on this list, but I have them number 3 on my list. And you had a number 3 on your list. You had my number 4 team, right, the Bengals?
I did.
Yeah. So 2 and 1, we'll tell you right now, we have identical teams at 2 and 1, but we have them flip-flopped. Your number 1 team is the Baltimore Ravens. Why?
I like what they did. I mean, they didn't have a first-round selection, but they came in and made a bang in the second day by picking up Sergio Kendall. I think he's going to be one of the steals of the draft. I mean, can you imagine what this guy will be like after a year under Ray Lewis? It's going to be crazy. They followed it up by getting big boy out of Alabama, Terrence Cody, Ed Dixon got 2 nice tight ends. And then even in the latter part of the draft, you saw them going after a guy named Ramon Harewood from Morehouse, who a lot of people say is he's going to be one of the sleepers of the draft. They drafted him in the 6th round, long-rangey, a tackle who's a project. But I think they did all the right things to make them better immediately, and they did it with players who are proven, in my opinion. I think the Baltimore Ravens are number 1.
And for me, it was the Seattle Seahawks number 1. I cheated a little bit, but basically, the Seahawks, they did everything they wanted to do. Earl Thomas was at the top of their board. They got him, so success there. They had Russell Okong up near the top of the board. They got him. So they got what they needed without having to move too much. They were able to pick up some picks later in the draft and acquire some talent. They picked up running backs, Lindell White and Leon Washington, both of whom have been starters. They got them later in the draft. That adds, I know they didn't draft those guys, but they still got them. Golden Tate, a star of the future. They really believe that. They may not have gotten the quarterback that they necessarily wanted, but remember now, they traded for David Whitehurst, who was the backup in San Diego. So he's going to be the heir apparent, if not long-term, at least for this year, and they can address next year. Now, let's remember, if things don't materialize quickly for the Seattle Seahawks and they end up with the high pick next year, one of the top quarterbacks coming out is going to be Jake Locker right there in Seattle playing for UW. So you can see the writing on the wall. I think Seattle did very well and positioned themselves tremendously. Ahmad Brooks and John Medani. Don't forget to join us tomorrow morning. We will review Game 5 between the Mavericks and Spurs, Game 5 between the Lakers and the Oklahoma City Thunder, and give you our thoughts on the latest ESPN 30 for 30
Thunder going
production.
down, baby.
Run, Ricky, run. See you tomorrow.